Since the last video that I published on this channel, I've developed 4 new video games, but unfortunately I did get pretty busy with college, so I wasn't able to make proper videos documenting them until now. So today's video is just going to be kind of loose, unstructured review of these 4 games, talking about the development process, and a little bit about my thoughts for the future, particularly the spring semester coming up for me, and what my plans are for that. So I'll talk about the games on an individual basis, so I guess we'll just get started with the first one, which is Protozoid. I developed this one pretty closely after Tromius, and this was for Ludum Dare 56, which I believe the theme for that one was microscopic life. And my take on that idea was something between the video game Spore, the cell stage in that, and Vampire Survivors for the mechanics. So if we get started here, you can see you start off as this weird little, like, I don't know, squid creature thing. And as you kill these enemies, you collect DNA points, kind of similar to Spore. That's where I got the idea from. And as the XP bar goes up there, I'll be a little bit. The beginning is pretty slow. I tried to model the progression off of Vampire Survivors, or at least a single session of it. Which, if you don't know, Vampire Survivors, I guess you could, it's kind of its own genre now, but you could sort of classify it as like a roguelike survival game. This game, Protozoid, it doesn't have any of those sort of roguelite elements of long-term permanent progression. Like, between games, you don't get any permanent increases in your power. I'm gonna turn the music down on this a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. But instead, you upgrade your character as you level up, and then eventually you die. Or actually, because of a programming oversight in my part, there is actually a hard level cap. Eventually you will basically just crash the game. So I guess you could consider that beating the game. But anyway, we're going to do two... Oh, that's not the one I wanted to pick, actually. Oh well. Yeah, this attack particularly was essentially inspired by the knife in Vampire Survivors, which operates on a similar basis, where as you upgrade it, you can increase the piercing potential, and then how many you shoot at once. Yeah. Whoops. One kind of error that I have in this game is that the hitbox on the character is definitely a little larger than it really should be. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I developed this game in Game Maker Studio, the same as Tromius, and I think there must have just been an oversight on my part in terms of like sprite scaling versus object scaling, or something related to that. I don't know exactly. But anyway, that is something to keep in mind if you want to try this out yourself. You can't get close to the enemies at all. And oh, I think you actually saw on the left there, the DNA pickups are actually programmed to time out after a certain amount of time. I think it's like a minute, so you can't just leave them there. There is some urgency to collect them. I'm pretty happy with how the sound design came out overall. I wrote or composed the music as well. Pretty basic, but I think it's suitable. And then the sounds I got off of freesound.com, and then some of them were developed in JSFXR, I think. Maybe not for this game, actually, I'm not sure. I don't remember anymore, but, oh, I think like that sound, the level up sound, I think that was a JSFXR thing. But anyway, okay, let's do an extra wave forward. That should be good. And there we go, we get our second enemy type. The progression in this game is tied to your level, so the new types of weapons that you can unlock, and then new enemies that come in, and the frequency of enemies. All of that is related to the current level that you're at. So as you go up in level, more enemies will spawn in, more enemies can be spawned in at once, all that sort of thing. I think I did mess up the timing on the snake guys a little bit. You can see there is eventually like a kind of a phase out between their side-to-side movement and then the animated side-to-side movement, but I don't know. It is what it is at a certain point. And they do actually drop a higher value form of XP. It looks the same as the other ones, but I believe the difference is 10 versus 25 XP points. So it is definitely worth targeting the higher level guys. So, electric bolts. This one took me a long time to get working. And this was also inspired after a Vampire Survivors item. I believe it's called the Lightning Ring or something like that. We'll do another Piercing Wave. There is not a way to regenerate health, so you have to play pretty conservatively. I was thinking about adding one, but, you know, there's only so much you can really do in 72 hours. And a funny story related to this, actually, is that the dorm I was staying at during this, there was a power and AC outage in only our room during the course of this. Well, actually, it lasted about a week, but that encompassed the entire 72-hour game jam. There was a power outage due to a water leak in our in our breaker box, or like something. I think it was like there was water leaking from like the room above us or something. And I found there was actually water coming out of like the switches on the breaker box. So yeah, we were without air conditioning or electricity for like a week. So this was made. This game was made pretty much entirely in my college library. And when they turned the power back on and the air conditioning, the temperature in our room actually hit 95 degrees. So yeah, it was pretty hot in there. That was definitely no fun, but I guess it did kind of give me an excuse to work on the game a little more diligently. So I don't know. Maybe it was good for this game at least. Okay. So here's our next thing. It's kind of like a landmine that drops down. And honestly, I don't really remember what the level cap is, because I remember it's a pretty silly oversight actually. Rather than I got a little lazy towards a certain part of this process. Instead of programming in like an XP curve function, I just manually input a bunch of values, and the table was only so long, and I think I intended to extend that, but I never actually did. So eventually the game will just try to level you up, but there's no reference value, and the game will basically freeze or crash or something. I don't remember what it does actually, but I also did all of the art for this game. I think for the time I'm relatively happy with how it came out. I think the double outline is a good feature to make everything kind of stand out against the background. The design is certainly a little uninspired. The snakes are pretty basic, but I do kind of like these orb guys though. They have an interesting look to them. Oh yeah, something else that's interesting about the yellow orb behavior is they actually spawn in chunks. Like if you notice, there's always like 5 to 8 of them or so, as opposed to the red guys, which come in just like individually. So that was another bit of added difference between the two. So as you can see, we're getting pretty powerful here. It's going to be pretty tough for me to lose at this point, I think. We'll do an extra wave forward. Why not? I think the water wave is definitely a little overpowered. And oh, there we go. That is the final enemy in the game right there. I believe there's also a little bit of random size added to certain enemies, like the snakes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I thought I animated these guys, but maybe I didn't have time to... Oh, they are animated. Yeah, there you go. I think the damage hit just resets the animation a little bit. We'll do bolts home in faster. Oh, I don't think that does anything, actually. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, so don't pick that upgrade. I don't think that actually does anything. Should be approaching the cap pretty soon here. For the XP curve, I believe I just did an exponential function. Kind of got that idea from old school RuneScape, and I'm sure a lot of games also implement like XP scaling like that. And yeah, there we go. So eventually the game crashes, so perhaps you could consider that your victory. Anyway, that's gonna about do it for that game. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It definitely does have some technical errors, but for the time frame that I had, I'm pretty happy with it. So next up we have Blind Faith, and I was actually part of a team of 5 people for this one. Ah, no comments, what a shame. And this was actually done as part of the game development club that I'm in at college. So for one of the weeks they had us split into teams of like 5 people, and we had 1 week to develop a game with the theme paranormal. So our idea that we came up with was, it's a kind of a point and click adventure game inspired by oh, listen to this music, by the way. The ambience is really excellent in this. We had a sound guy as part of our team, so yeah. So it was me. There's another programmer, sound guy, someone on art, or yeah, the sound and music was one guy, and then art and narrative. So pretty cool. So we'll get started here. So there's a little intro text thing explaining what's going on. Basically, you are looking for your dog who has run off into a abandoned, like, old haunted church. So, in terms of inspiration, we kind of had the idea, there's this old game called Akalabeth, which was like it was kind of considered the prequel to Ultima, if you know about those games. It was a first-person dungeon crawling game, which had like, it was like way ahead of its time. It was pretty impressive, but it had these very simple like wireframe graphics, which I tried to emulate through my Unity shader here. Yeah, I think it's mostly successful, but there are certain things like this where, you know, the pixel width is definitely inconsistent for a variety of reasons, because the way I did this, and I did all of the 3D modeling and rendering stuff in this, is that these are actually wireframe, like, polygonal models that are actually just shaded white with the corner, like on the wireframe corners. So this is not, I think that's definitely not the most ideal way to do things, but we did have a week for it, and it worked for me. But anyway, so that's the first clue, 7. So we'll keep that in mind. And then we can also see there's a key over here. And in terms of the gameplay, so Akalabeth inspired the kind of aesthetic, and then also the movement system is a kind of grid-based. As you can see, I can only, you know, snap to grid, but there is smooth interpolation between them. We did originally have the idea of just pre-rendered scenes, but I was able to get this 3D environment working. So I also did the programming for the puzzles in the game. So as you can see here, oh, there's actually another clue we have to gather. So if we look at this paper, the other clue is 15. But anyway, we have to just set the time on this clock. And we get the next key, which is over here. And I think I actually did I'm pretty proud of the puzzles in this game, because they are actually programmed in like a general sense. Like you can change the answer or the combination fairly easily. So, alright. There's a ghost there who's telling you to go look for something. Now, since I put it there, I know where it is, but to be honest, I think I might have made this one a little too hard. So you're supposed to go into this room, go over here, and then notice something on the desk here. Ghost's heart necklace. In terms of the gameplay, we were mainly inspired by the game Myst, which was like an old point-and-click adventure game with this like sort of spooky atmosphere. But yeah. Well, I guess maybe not necessarily anything specific about Myst, but more so the genre that it's part of. These kind of like early graphics, computer, click-and-point puzzle adventure games. So here's this note, which is supposed to clue you in about the angel's wings, because you can see you can swap these around, but what's the order? They're already arranged by height, so that's not it. So instead, it is actually the height of the wings. So we do that, we get the next key. And I did actually fully program this to, I did this one as well. I fully programmed this, you can swap them around however you want. Yes, go over here. And now the library. These clues, we did this towards the end, so it's pretty simple. There's just paper on the wall. 6481. And you may remember that there is something over here. 6481, and that'll open up the safe. Alright. What will I do without my pot? Now guess what? There's a pot in the storage room. And you can bring it over to the ghost. There we go. If you notice the outlines on some objects, I was actually able to find an outline shader for Unity. Didn't totally work though. I really don't know what's going on with that thing, but it was behaving kind of temperamentally. But anyway, now we got the next clue, which is supposed to clue you in about the piano, which you may have noticed, or organ, I guess. So Gabe, so we gotta spell the dog's name backwards with the notes on the piano. And I included a little reference here if you don't know the piano notes, so. And every key on here is actually mapped to, this took me a long time to do, but, well, let me turn up the sound. Every single note on here is actually mapped with a, like a sample sound, so. Oh. Wait, hold on. C, D, E. Oh, okay, there we go. I guess I don't know my notes either. But yeah, so you got that, and then here is the final scene. And I'll just let this play out. And there we go. So you may notice you can actually solve the game immediately if you do know the puzzle for the organ. But that is kind of just the nature of... Oh, let me turn this down. But that is kind of just the nature of these sort of point-and-click, or puzzle games in general, really. There's a YouTube video by Doshington that I think is really interesting about this concept. Like the idea of... well, I guess it's not about puzzle games, but... it's his video on La Mulana, where he talks about this idea, which I think is really interesting about, like, you know, how do you make a puzzle game where, you know, the internet exists, right? It kind of takes away a fundamental part of these sort of, like, puzzle-solving in gameplay mechanics when, you know, the easiest solution is just to look it up online. So you have to be kind of intrinsically motivated to make those kind of games, or to play them, I guess. Which might, you know, explain the, like, relative unpopularity of puzzle games compared to other genres. especially in the past. Like if you look at early PC gaming history, you know, it was definitely a lot more prolific of a genre than it is right now. But anyway, that is Blind Faith. Pretty cool. I think it is. I don't know. I do think it's maybe the most unique or interesting of the games that I have on my my resume, I guess you could say. I think the like us coming together as a team was definitely pretty useful. A lot of ideas that I wouldn't have had on my own for designing stuff. Yeah, definitely a very interesting experience, especially like working as a part of a team like that. But anyway, I think that'll about do it for Blind Faith. Next up is Stay By My Side, which this was part of a 2-day game jam, which was hosted in person, also at my university. But this one was it wasn't through the game development club. It was actually hosted by a professor of the school. Unfortunately, she was not able to make it actually, but her husband hosted the event in her stead. So there were like 13 people that signed up, but only 4 people actually did show up. So we just decided we would make one team of us 4, and you can see 4 people here. So I'll show off their websites first, actually. So this is the first guy, Jordan, and this is his Steam page. You can see he's released a couple games here. This is like a typing game, but you use your controller to play it. Pretty interesting idea. Yeah. He also has an itch.io page, which you can look up. I believe he's also under Pretty OK Games on itch.io. Or oh, here it is. Yeah. So here's his page. Let's see, got a few games here. Pretty cool. Then next up, this is Timothy, Delta Penguin, and this is more of like a blog page where he talks about some different games he's developed. So he also talks about this. Yeah, there you go. And then Owen, who is our art guy for this. Pretty cool. So you may notice that there were three of us are programmers and 1 art guy. So I think, yeah, that was perhaps not the most ideal team composition, but I think it came out pretty well in the end. So if we get started here, the theme was Stay By My Side, which we also titled the game, and ooh, that wasn't really supposed to happen, but oh well. Kind of a rough start, but that's fine. So as you can see here, you're this weird little like crab creature, and you gotta fall behind this giant worm enemy. Or, well, not enemy actually, but the worm is your friend, not an enemy. Those are the enemies out there that are chasing you down. And the giant worm has a lot of benefits to you. Provides light, it keeps smaller predators away, drops health pickups, and also plows down trees, which you can collect the wood. So my contribution to this was I did the player movement mechanic, the worm movement mechanic, the tree spawning system, the like wood collection thing, and then also the escape raft, which you will see a little later on. And then Timothy, Delta Penguin, he did the enemy AI for the most part, and then Jordan did the UI for the game. And then Owen did the art. As you can see, there's the art for the large worm and the player character and the enemies. Unfortunately, it was, a pretty heavy time crunch, so I had to pull some random stock images for the other stuff, like the trees and the wood, which is why they don't congeal with the rest of the art style. Because we did only have like maybe 20 hours total to develop the game, which was definitely pretty tough. Because that included like the ideation phase, and like design, testing, all that stuff that had to be all done in 20 hours. So the idea we came up with is sort of the concept of like, you're initially reliant on the worm for your survival, but as the game goes on, you have to eventually learn to overcome that reliance and venture off on your own. Now we did put maybe we probably should have indicated to the player that there is a survival raft that you can access on the boundaries of the island. But I think having that be an organic discovery of the player would be more impactful. So it's just kind of a question of like, how reasonable is it for a new player who has no context going in to actually end up finding that? Because I think you would eventually figure, like, just following the worm around doesn't really seem to be doing anything, right? But I don't know. Thinking about it now, I probably should have added a noise for the trees getting plowed down. But, oh well. This game was definitely, I don't know, I think the time period was a little too short for us. Because this was actually everyone else's first game jam as well, which definitely makes things tough, and a lot of our time was definitely spent on just file collaboration and setting up our GitHub repository for the game, and yeah, definitely some inefficiency there, but it's a learning opportunity, and I think it came out pretty well for the amount of time we had, so... oh yeah, also you do have an arrow for directing you towards the worm if you get lost, so you can always find it. Because the island is like relatively big, so not necessarily guaranteed that you would be able to find your way back. In terms of the worm like movements, it's relatively simple. There's just the worm chooses there's a new target location that the worm goes after. Every like 30 seconds or so, I assign a new one. Or no, it's actually based on proximity. So every time it's kind of like the game Snake, in a way. Every time it gets close to the target, it assigns a new target to the worm, and it follows after that, and the motion is modulated a little bit by a Perlin noise function, just to give it a little bit of a like organic movement. And then the other worm segment pieces just kind of follow after it, so pretty simple. I am probably approaching enough wood to build a raft, so I'm actually gonna try my luck here. And the amount of wood that you need is random, between 100 and 200. So, oh, there we go. Pretty cheap, actually. So you get on the raft, and you drift away, and you escape the island. So I also did the raft mechanic here. And there you go, you win. Just to show off one last thing before I conclude with this, we do have the settings page. Pretty nice. Little drop down. And wow, it actually, I guess it automatically detects your monitor's resolutions. That's nice. And then these links are links to the website. Pretty cool. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for this game. Now, finally, we have Ascent of the Pharaoh, which I made this one for a game jam called the Pizza Jam, which, if we take a look here, this one is 9-day game jam, and the prize for the winner is the guy who hosts it will buy you a large pizza and ship it to wherever you are, anywhere in the world. Pretty cool. So, we have a list of 15 different prompts for the theme. I chose Secret of the Pharaoh. Didn't exactly have time for the secret part, but it is definitely Pharaoh. So, take a look here. If we look at the results, I actually got 12th place overall out of 76 entries, which I'm very happy with. Definitely much better than I did with Tromius, and interestingly, I'm pretty happy with this. I got number 8 in innovation. Pretty cool. Number 23 in chosen theme though, which understandable. I did also get a lot of people commenting that the game was just too frustrating for them, which I guess is understandable, because if we get into it here, my idea for this game came from, if you know the game Getting Over It, you might also know that it was actually based off of another game, which actually like pioneered the movement mechanic in it, where you have like the guy walking around and he uses like a hammer that he swings around. Like that came from an old web game, and Getting Over It took that and refined it and adapted it to kind of a more polished experience. So my inspiration for this one was actually an old Flash game which I believe was called So You Have No Legs, which basically has the same movement mechanic you see here. It's guy with no legs, just a long, very powerful arm that he used to move around. The So You Have No Legs thing was this old Flash game, and I can't find like any information about it. It's really weird. I feel like I'm the only person who ever played that game. But here I'm just accessing a little secret. Get a little trail behind our guy. I thought this might be fun, so I'll grab that first before I get into the proper thing. So, yeah, let me go full screen actually. Okay. So the idea is you're like a exploration robot or something in an Egyptian pyramid, and there's like a cave-in, and you gotta find your way out. So this was actually my first time experimenting with like imported textures and stuff, because you can see all the brick textures and like these things. I got those off of Sketchfab, or all like free to use assets, and then that scan in the bottom there, that's also from Sketchfab, which I believe it is actually scanned off of a real like ancient Egyptian artifact, which is pretty cool. I'm also very surprised that this actually runs this well on the web. This is I haven't downloaded this. This is actually just running through the website, so pretty nice. I'm also pretty happy with how the sound design came out. You can kind of hear. I think I might turn it up a little bit. Everything you do, and like when you fall down, there's like little metallic clicks and stuff. And then there's also a special sound for when you compress the neck too much. It's like a little spring, like boing. But yeah, we'll see later where that comes into play. But since this is, you could kind of consider this a rage game, I think it is understandable that people weren't really huge fans of this for a game jam. I don't think people exactly want to spend the time required for a rage game when they've got like 70 other games to check out, so I don't know. Maybe not exactly the best choice of genre, but it was something I wanted to make, so. Oh, not far enough. And as you can see there, you cannot grab the gray smooth stone. Only the more like rough, porous, like brown stone. So, as you can see there, the texture is actually warped because I forgot to properly scale the model when I exported it, so, oh well. Well, model, if you can call it that, it's just a cube. Okay, this part is a little tricky, climbing along the ceiling. This was also inspired by a part in so you have no legs. There's one of the first like kind of tough parts of the game. You have to make your way across the ceiling over a pit of lava. And I remember freaking out of that a lot as a kid. One aspect of that game that I didn't implement in this is sort of like a pseudo RPG mechanic, or I guess more of like a Metroidvania thing. There were certain items you could pick up that can make your progress easier, or sometimes were actually like necessary for progress. Like the I think that's a little loud. Like there were things you could pick up to make you like fly further. When you launched yourself with the arm, there was stuff that would allow you to like smash through boulders. It was a really interesting game. It's very strange that I can't find much information about it online. And it also used this like really kind of weird, uncanny art style where it mixed this like kind of like Flash cartoon aesthetic with like the main character, which was like a vector illustration thing converted to like a bitmap. It mixed that with these like very high quality, or well, they were like high quality but like low resolution scans of like Aztec artifacts and like paintings, or I guess not paintings necessarily, but like wall murals and stuff. And it created this very strange aesthetic because a lot of them were like sort of 3D as well, but the game logic was all 2D. I don't know, it really left an impression on me as a kid, and oh man, I fell down. Very unlucky, but yeah. Yeah, it left a big impression on me as a kid, and it was a very, very memorable game for me, so it's kind of why I chose to adapt it. I did model the robot guy, modeled that myself, as you can see, pretty basic, just a bean shape. I think I did have plans to eventually adapt it and improve the model a bit, but didn't really get around to that. And also because of school at the time, I had some exams that were during this period, so I think I actually finished like the vast majority of the work in this game in about 3 days. There were a couple days at the beginning of me trying to figure out what sort of movement mechanic I wanted. I had some other ideas, and oh man, right at the end, huh? I tried to make the metal sounds funny enough to make you not feel so bad about falling, but I'm not sure how long that lasts. But anyway, I had some other ideas for movement mechanics for this game, but didn't really pan out. I ended up going with this one. I did. One of the other ideas was something similar to, if you know the game Pogo Stuck, something like that, but to be honest, I just find that sort of movement system is like so annoying, I can't even, I cannot bring myself to master it, so I don't know. As long as at least I like it, I think, that's a certain threshold you have to pass. Okay. I gotta focus for this one. Now, you may notice that all of the game logic is two-dimensional, but the graphics are 3D, which was kind of an issue, especially with the grab here. Like, it's not always obvious if you're actually attached properly, which I do acknowledge is an issue. I think, I probably should have put a little more time into getting, basically, you want to get all of the grabbable surfaces should have like a Z depth that is enough to like almost intersect with the claw, I think. Another game that I was sort of, oh yeah, also here, I believe I made them too high for you to just do like a regular jump. It's like there, it's just not really high enough, so you have to do something a little more fancy. You have to get some momentum, like swing around, something like that. So that was my concept behind this section. I really don't know what's going on with the lighting in this, to be honest. It must be something that Unity does to optimize the game for the web, by like culling certain objects if they're a certain distance away or something. I'm really not sure, but anyway. I think this is probably, I think it's the most fun game I've made. Well, fun for a certain type of player, which I happen to be one of them. Like, Tromius is interesting, I guess, but it's like, to be honest, it's a little too mechanically busted to really be fun in some cases. And, oh, man. Now you gotta go all the way down the slide. Bonk. Tromius is a little too, like, mechanically simple in some ways. Protozoid, I think, is a little too basic. Because, like, if you compare it, Vampire Survivors, a lot of the interest in it comes from the complexity of the system. Like, the upgrade systems. There's just so much you can do, it's crazy. The gameplay itself is not really super interesting. Which is part of the point, of course. It's just like a relaxing, casual game. But, alright, here, so we're sliding down there. And you gotta make sure you grab the wall so you don't bounce off, like I just did there. Oh well. You can kind of push yourself forward by doing this, but I think it's inconsistent. But now here is a case where the head bounce is actually useful, because you can do... Oh, well, I guess there's not enough room for it on this one. You have to just kind of fall backwards. Oh, there we go. So if we get... I remember I did figure out a pretty good strategy for this, but I don't remember what... Okay, there we go. That works. Now this next one is further away, so you do have to use the head bounce to get this one to work. There we go. I thought that was pretty fun. But, oh no. As long as I don't slide off. I was also inspired by something called A Difficult Game About Climbing, which was pretty fun. I very much enjoyed that. Oh no! Oh. I didn't want this last section to be too frustrating, but it seems that I've forgotten how to play my own game. I think my best time ever, when I was like really in the zone of like developing this and like testing it every day, was maybe like 5 minutes, but I'm gonna get a lot more than that here, because it has been like a month since I've played this. But anyway, I was saying it was also inspired by A Difficult Game About Climbing, kind of another getting over it type game, pretty fun. But anyway, that is the end. 7:17. So what is that? That's like 10 or 11 minutes. So not too crazy. But anyway, you can reset here, but it actually doesn't reset the timer. I forgot to put that in. So if you do repeat this again, it will not show the timer. It will show the cumulative time of all your runs. So yeah. But I think that's gonna about do it for this video. I think that's most of what I wanted to talk about. I guess the last thing is my plans for the upcoming spring semester. My goal is to develop 4 more games. Maybe more, because 4 months of the semester where you're actually in class, basically, 1 game a month, I think that's a decent time schedule. I will be doing primarily game jam focused stuff, although I do want to actually start moving into more like a proper, maybe not necessarily commercial projects, but something more in that direction. I don't know if I'm quite there to the level of being able to develop a commercial video game, but I do want to at least try it out. But of course, the thing with that is, you know, how much marketing you have to do. You know, just developing the game is not necessarily going to get you anywhere. Even through my game jams, although I was able to get some exposure from my games, you know, how much of that is going to be convertible into actual, like, potential customers, right? I think I probably would have to start doing more like social media marketing. I know there's a lot of stuff related to like indie game, like a lot of people advertise on Blue Sky, and they especially have like itch.io integration, so might have to consider doing something like that. But yeah, a lot of options. I think through my experience, I think probably like a week-long game jam is probably the ideal amount of time for me. Any longer than that, and it starts to be a little more like, you know, the potential becomes a little overwhelming, and I just don't really end up actually accomplishing anything. And anything shorter than that, I think there's not enough time for me to polish the game enough for it to be notable. So, I don't know. Hard to say. But I do have the goal of making one game a month and also documenting them on this channel. That's another thing. I want to post a lot more on here as a way of like documenting my progress and creating sort of, you know, maybe you wouldn't count it as a resume exactly, but or I guess portfolio is the word, right? Yeah, I'm creating a portfolio of work. That's what's going on here. But anyway, I hope you found this interesting, and pretty unstructured for this one, but I will be having more kind of high, scripted out, more like polished videos coming out pretty soon. So I go back to college tomorrow, so that's going to be the start of things. Yeah. Anyway, I will see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you have a good day.